Hi. My name is Michael I am a senior at Clonlara School. I am really into rocks and minerals. In fact, so are my mother and my brother. Last summer, we went on a 3-week trip hunting rocks in Minnesota. We had a lot of fun looking for minerals in mine dumps. We also visited an open mine and went down under the ground to the lowest level of the Sudan mine. It is a very interesting state, and I want to share with you what I did and what I learned. Minnesota is almost in the middle of America, and it has more water than any other state. It has 10,000 lakes that cover 5,600 square miles. That is 1 mile of water for every 15 square miles of land. The water collects and flows to the sea. This is called a watershed. Minnesota water ends up in Hudson Bay, the Great Lakes, and the Gulf of Mexico. The water for the Gulf of Mexico comes from Lake Itasca. Then it becomes the Mississippi River. It was discovered in 1832 by Henry Schoolcraft. The real name of the lake is Coition. That means Elk Lake in Ojibwe. Henry Schoolcraft changed the name to Lake Itasca. He took the Latin word for head, caput, and the word for truth, veritas. Then he made a new word using pieces of both, itas and ca, meaning the true head, the beginning. The Mississippi River is 2,552 miles long, but it is very small and shallow here. You can cross it easily by walking across the planks or through the water. My brother and I waded from the beginning of the river at Lake Itasca to the first bridge. It was nice and cool and a lot of fun. Long ago, the land between Lake Omuskos and the Mississippi was a sacred place. It is where the Ojibwe buried their dead. You can look at it, but only from a distance. It is a protected site and has a fence around it. An officer from the DNR said that dead people were buried, sitting in the center and looking to the east. Then, the earth is put on top, and all that is left is a little hill. It is called a grave mound. These mounds were made between 3,000 and 350 years ago. This is the Lake Itasca Post Office and Store. It was built by Theodore and Johanna Wegmans. The store was built after the lake became a state park in 1892. People would visit the headwaters and have a drink at the store and send a postcard. The Wegman family also offered meals and lodging in the cabin next to the store. Theodore was the first official game warden in the park. He did this for 25 years. This is what is left of the store. In 1977, most of the building was still standing and a replica was made. That means it is exactly this same size and shape. I visited it, but it looks too new and shiny. You cannot go in. I prefer to look at ruins and old pictures. Then, I imagine it. The Wegmans were born in the 1860s and died in the 1940s. They are buried at Itasca Pioneer Cemetery. It overlooks the lake. Their grave is the one on the right. There are 14 graves and 7 of them belong to children. Preacher's Grove is full of red pines. They are very tall trees and have been growing there since 1710. It was after a big fire. Red pines have a thick bark and they can survive fires. After a fire, all the bushes are gone and the soil has a lot of new nutrients. Then, the pines drop their seeds. Now, there are no more fires in the park and there are no young red pines. There are a lot of maples instead. My favorite lake in Minnesota is Bad Medicine Lake. The Ojibwe did not fish in the lake. They did not see any tributaries and thought the water was bad. They didn't know about the springs under the lake. Bad Medicine Lake is really one of the clearest lakes in Minnesota. It has almost no pollution and lots of fish. a lot of people in the north of Minnesota believe in God. I saw many signs like this. Our campground even hid a church. We stayed here for a week. We played in the water and we went on trips. Paul Bunyan and Babe, his blue ox, are characters from a story written in 1916 by William Lloyd. It was called The Marvelous Exploits of Paul Bunyan. Paul is a very strong giant and a nice person. He is always willing to help out and work hard. Remember the round rock I am leaning against at the beginning of my talk? That is Paul Bunyan's marble. Paul Bunyan was made up by the loggers. At night, they would sit in the bunkhouse and tell great stories. Look at the size of the tree these loggers took down. No wonder they had tales about giants that made the work easier. There are many places that claim to be the giants' birthplace. They have big statues for the tourists. This one was so big that my brother and I can sit in his hand together. Minnesota has enormous skies. They are very beautiful. I took this picture on our way to Hibbing as we were driving to visit a mine there. Between Hibbing and Chisholm lies the Hill Rust Mine. It is an open mine. Here they mine rock with particles of iron. It is called taconite and it has a grey color. To get the taconite out of the ground, deep holes are drilled. Then they are filled with explosives and the rock layers are blasted open. The ore is hauled out by big machinery. This is one of the trucks from the mine. It is huge. Just to make sure you understand how big the vehicles are, look at this. I am standing by the rear wheel, on the right. The tire is 9 feet in diameter. The trucks deliver the taconite ore to the grinder house. There it is crushed and ground to powder. Magnets pull out the iron particles. These are mixed with clay and rolled into pellets. The pellets are hardened in a special oven. It is called a tempering forge. My brother asked the guide where we could buy some taconite pellets. He laughed very hard. Then he sent us to a railroad crossing. It was everywhere. This is what it looks like. To keep a mine open, you have to pump out water all the time. If you don't do that, water collects at the bottom and you cannot blast the rock. It is too wet. This is what happens when an open mine is closed and abandoned. Over time, it fills with water. The leftover rock was dumped in high piles. The forest grew over it. The tower over the shaft of the Sudan underground mine makes an impression. It is 3 stories high and made of strong metal beams. To get to the ore, you have to go down. And to go down, you need a hoist. The hoist has 2 drums, and between them they hold 3,000 feet of hoisting rope. From the rope hang 2 cages. When one cage goes up, the other one goes down. Behind the fence on the left hangs a cage. It has wheels on the back, and it rides the shaft that goes down at a steep incline. The speed is controlled by the hoist. Here I am, ready to go on my big adventure deep into the mine with my guide. The ride in the cage is dark and scary. We go 10 miles per hour. The first thing I see when we get out of the cage, at the lowest level of the shaft, 2 light bulbs and an open train. We are at level 27 of the mine. Well, here it is. The last place ore was dug before the Sudan mine was closed. We are 2,341 feet under the ground. I looked at the drills the miners used. They worked on compressed air. Miners followed the veins of hematite. They left other minerals and rocks alone. They had no use for this beautiful wall of banded jasper. In the old days, the ore was loaded in these cars. They were called Sudan cars because they were made at the mine. They held 6 tons of ore. A miner had to fill 4 of these cars by hand every shift. A shift lasted 10 hours. Later, grande cars were used deep in a mine. They carried ore from the vein to the shaft. There the whole car flipped to its side. The ore rolled out and loaded a skip. The skip was hoisted to the surface. The grande cars stayed behind in the mine. This machine loaded the ore into grande cars. The operator stood on a platform on the side of the tracks. He made the car go forward to load it with the scoop and backward to dump ore. I am sitting on a scoop on the front. The ore of the skip was loaded onto special cars. These were joined in a train. The train went to Lake Superior. There, the ore was shipped by ore carriers. My service dog, Tiny, saw this beauty and fell in love on first sight. He really does look tiny here. The north of Minnesota is beautiful, and the trees are amazing. The land here is very rocky, and there is a lot of erosion. That means that the soil is taken away by the water. The roots of this tree have adapted. They can grow in very thin layers of soil. See how it grows around the rock. We are walking the Coition Falls Trail. This part of Minnesota was shaped by glaciers. About 10,000 years ago, they retreated and left behind hills and valleys. The melting water made the Coition River. In Ojibwe, Coition means river full of beaver or muskrat houses. Fur trappers, traders, and explorers traveled this river. And in the late 1800s, loggers floated big amounts of lumber down to the city of Winton, where the sawmills were. We stopped at the falls, the Ojibwe name for the Miscawishkawa. It means I make it fall. The drop is 70 feet from the overhang where we are. The falls didn't have a lot of water. This is because the hydroelectrical company built a dam. Now, a lot of the water disappears into 2 big pipes that go to the electricity plant in Winton. This is what the falls looked like 18 years ago, when my mom went here for the first time. One day we hiked in the forest and found a river. There was nobody else around. The river was for us alone. My brother and I spent hours sitting in the river looking for nice rocks. We found pieces of jade and some very shiny little agates. Visiting Minnesota was a wonderful experience. I loved the hikes through the woods to big rock formations, like this one south of Ely. This wall was cut out by a river. It is very smooth. We found all kinds of interesting things, like these cars hiding on very overgrown tracks. They are log cars. I climbed up onto one of them with my brother. So, where are you going next summer? How about Minnesota? This presentation was written and produced by Michael Kuhn. Picture credits, Michael Kuhn, 2015, and the public domain, March 2016.